trees, tell me why you wanna hate. Ain't playing chess or playing checkers, but you know I'm true to the game. Yeah, it's like bitch ass homie, you know it's like bitch ass bitch. It's like you bitch ass homie, you know it's like you bitch ass bitch. Yeah, I'm on my way, big pretty fat, I be on my waist. You can be acting like you a crazy. I'm in this shit with a poker face, fucking with my books, I'ma cut a motherfucker, it ain't even open space. X a motherfucker out, don't make me come and tic-tac-toe a brain. Are you playing? Some checkers for chest, check. And you gotta dress in the best. Just hoping that you don't get shot. When you adjusting the best. Don't make me come and play hide and go get it. What you pussies, I'm counting to 10. No, I ain't talking about no motherfucking movie, but I'm dancing out in the wind. And I be dancing with the woods. Native American mixed with an African. I'm too advanced, I'm in the hood. Yeah, eating out cans, it wasn't good. Yeah, my travel bands be in the woods. Yeah, like by the water, we playing some goldfish, goldfish. Put you in solitary, cause you ain't go home, bitch. That's on the boat. All of you jumps to get jumped without a rope, bitch. Rope, bitch. The game, it used to be fair, now you got a cold switch. But I'ma be doing my thing. Flex, you wasn't doing a thing. I put that you got a flame. But tell me now who was the name? Don't let up high, the man that come in, you know that I flew in the plane. Emotions is high when we are flying, you know that I flew in the rain. Running food, that be on trees, tell me why you wanna hate. Ain't playing chess or playing checkers, but you know I'm true to the game. Yeah, it's like you bitch ass homie, you know it's like you bitch ass bitch. It's like you bitch ass homie, you know it's like you bitch ass bitch. Yeah, wake up and stretch to set up the fort. No, we ain't eating no leftover report. Grew up in fire, who set off the torch? No seven spoons, no setting the forks. Just got a case and I'm sweating of course. Then did he bop when I left by the court? Best believe I don't be betting on sports. You was just lost in the court, but you should pay some bread for a course. You kept on depending until they gon' leave you as dead as a corpse. You wasn't thinking about family, yeah. You wasn't thinking about lineage, yeah. You wasn't thinking about vanity. You wasn't thinking obedience. The problems that you'll be handling, yeah. You wasn't thinking they tedious, yeah. You acting like you could not handle it, cause you wasn't taking it easy, bitch. Been to the valley of death and the warriors tapping, I made it an easy trip. I put this on everything, take over everything. No, I ain't waiting to beat the shit. All I do is be declaring war. Yeah. Why you trying to compare sports? You wanna play Independence Day? All your kids will be really bored, cause I don't play no games. Even though it look like one. Though this ain't Sonic, you might lose your coins if you slip and fall on the spine, bro. But I'm high, the man that come in, you know that I flew in the plane. Emotions is high when we are flying, you know that I flew in the rain. Running food, that be on trees, tell me why you wanna hate. Ain't playing chess or playing checkers, but you know I'm true to the game. Yeah, it's like you bitch ass homie, you know it's like you bitch ass bitch. It's like you bitch ass homie, you know it's like you bitch ass bitch.
Yeah, oh, new classic gold, new classic gold hip hop. You know what I'm saying? Now check it out. We got to break some stuff down about the mind, about life, spirituality for the hood, straight 101. You know what I'm saying? Stunt 101. You know what I'm saying? When it come to flying in the sky, being close to God, that's the only thing we stunting for. That's the only we stunting for. You know, so we ain't stunting for no. We ain't stunting for no. I can't get jiggy with this nigga. We ain't stunting no. We might like that G Unit song, you know, and stuff, but also, you know what I'm saying, like that and stuff like that. But you stunt for God. That's it. That's the only thing we doing on this page. You on the wrong page if you think you get ready to stunt for anything else. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna tell you that right now. You stunt for Duncan right now. You stunt for Duncan. Good coffee and stuff, good stuff there and stuff like that. There ain't nothing wrong with every now and then. You know what I'm saying? Every now and then for other stuff in the world that might be our biases and stuff like that. But don't forget, come back to God. And you good to go. And once we break that down, this is going to have a whole clear understanding that we reaching back things. We peeling all reality back to its original stage when it's in that simultaneous realm. Everybody need to find that simultaneous realm because a lot of things that you are in is coming from a space of already being in that simultaneous realm. And you picking a bias of one of the duplications of it that become you picking sides, or you thinking you got this angel on this side, the devil on the other side, or you separating the thought and the feeling, not understanding the thought condensed to become the feeling and emotion, like the light condensed and become the cloud and the rain. So for the most part, you get sturdy and hard in your distant cooled off time. So to treat these energies as distant and cold in your internal winter and fall. But for the most part, that's when you're not letting water just melt. Emotions go all over the place. Not just letting light click on when it ain't time for you to shine. You being egotistical, you being narcissistic. It's about time for you to experience a little internal fall in winter and be able to take those characteristics that you see that God show you externally that you within, to be able to understand that that's what's going on within you, to show the best representations externally. And then therefore, we know what spiritual space you in based upon what mentality you conducted before it even been down and became your goddamn actions. Now, for the most part, a lot of people may lie. So the actions and the physical representation may go beyond the mental construct. But that's what this live stream is about. So you'll be able to separate and know which part of life is first, so you in order, so you never get rocked to sleep, or you in a position of still learning the process, and it doesn't go as extreme or as far as another careless individual that didn't know it was spikes off that cliff and lost all their mind and coins and everything of that nature because they thought they was Sonic the Hedgehog and they was living life fast and they ain't slow down. They ain't wait for tails. They ain't wait for nobody. And they see what they got in their tail. A few spikes. Be careful joining the industry, kids. It's like, oh, Sal, get a little spikes, put your little booty holes. Like, oh, other than that. Other than that. Oh, Sal, pick your poison. But we is going to talk about some good mind knowledge and stuff like that, so you can just see these things from a mile away. And now we're not talking about the industry or whatever. We're talking about just life circumstances, life situations, right? So you already know what you already experiencing, and each particular situation, if you in a learning process or you in a knowing process. And when you in that knowing process, these are things that you feel more down on when you allow these things to escape you and even put you in a negative situation. And things you don't know, these are things you cut yourself a lot more slack on, or whatever the case may be. But here's the thing, being in this simultaneous space, you'll be able to understand where you're over exaggerating things also. So when things that you do know, but you still allowed it to happen to you, to put your spirit in a space of feeling like you didn't know, and there could be representations there also that could kind of be like you didn't know something, yet you did know it. These are things you hold on to, and these is the root stages of a person being hard on themselves. Pause, no homo. Before they start, I don't think that's a pause or homo, but before that, it start to accumulate into other areas in their life, and now they're playing in this pocket, they got a guard up. In this pocket, they're extra soft. In this pocket, they're extra hard. In this pocket, they got a whole bunch of overcompensations or whatever the case may be. But it come from an earlier stage that don't have anything to do with once something condensed into the physical, and then now it has its place or its representations in the physical or the 3D. And a lot of times when you cling more onto the physical without realizing the starting point, or even if you're in a physical situation, you think, oh, this situation started here. But how you got in that situation had a starting point. So it's getting you to understand that everything is starting in your first body, the mind. And when you start to put it in that perspective, then you're putting things back in order. And a lot of times when you're looking at things purely physical, you're already out of order. You know what I'm saying? Because you was in someone's mind before it condensed and became dead blood cells, aka sperm in an egg cell. And then that's the thing that come together to make hearts and lungs and thyroids and stuff like, you see what I'm saying? So if you just understand the order of something and don't try to use you being in the wrong order, and then, for an example, it's spiritual, mental, physical, spirit. If you don't like that word because it got religious meanings behind it, replace it with your space. Replace your mind with your time. Replace matter with your body. And then replace the external representations as the fourth pillar. Things that we utilize, or whatever the case may be. So here's the thing. You could say, I'm using my mind. You don't believe in the spirit, so you're already in the mind. So you missing part of the order. Your space observing, you develop in a mind, your first body, an idea, and then it develop as a physical. Then you're gonna forget that your mind is mimicking your space, and then get confused of what your mind attached to, the physical. Then you don't know which to process, and then you're going to be separating it already in your first body, the mind. What is feelings and emotions is different than thoughts and ideas, not thoughts and ideas condensing to become feelings and emotions. So now you got this good cop, bad cop concept, this bias dichotomy concept. That's faulty reasoning, right? Then you're going to use then the mind creates the body, so the body mimics the mind. You're going to start to do things with the body based on your mind, but lost in the physical first, with just the physical. And therefore, you're going to miss the process of what led to the physical, and then come up with ideas about what happened first, already being third portions out of order. Your spirit, mind, then your body. Then you're going to be using the physical technology and science to try to justify what came first, which you went beyond the spirit, got lost into the second form, the mind, and then got lost into trying to say the starting point from your intellect of the third point, the physical. So you're going to try to find a starting point already coming from a starting point out of order. See what I'm saying? So it doesn't make sense. Start with your space. Things happen within a space. Space start to develop a content. A stale space start to develop a content. And that content is awareness or toxicity or formation or combustion or external, internal. And external represents distance and brightness. Internal represents closeness and dimness. So you get forms of brightness from distance, and distance represent before the completion of something, or the condensing of something, or the collection of something. So distance isn't a thing yet. We're creating the essence of distance. So the essence of distance is the scattering, and scattering represents before something is collected. So that's something in its lighter stage. That represents the totality of masculine, or whatever the case may be. And that's something in its lighter stage. And that's the essence of the existence of light. Before we see it as a condensity and something that could blind you, or something that's generating as the form that we're calling that's condensing to become fleshly fluids and wind and water and things of that nature. So it's just helping you understand, when you got the right starting point, you don't necessarily have to get lost in another human's brain to understand a starting point, and to also understand when someone may be off the rail, having a wrong starting point and developing their intelligence purely on the basis of a bias or a dichotomy from what they were sure about based on a previous bias or a dichotomy. So this is why things like science have to be updated all the time and stuff like that. Because really, science ain't about life. Science is really technology. And technology is based on conveniences. And conveniences is based on doing something we're already doing, but making it easier. So we're never doing anything different. A monkey ain't never doing nothing different just because they're coming up with science and technology. Humans ain't coming up with nothing different just because they're coming up with science and technology. Same way you needed heart and lung surgery and brain surgery back in the day, you needed heart, lung, and brain surgery today. What's the difference? Science created a technology. So science is an idea based on experiences, right? So then you got a group of people that could create peer-reviewed or whatever and create a technology, as long as it's funded. And that technology is just going to make the way we used to do heart and brain surgery a lot easier for us to do heart and brain surgery now. What didn't change? You need heart and brain surgery and things of that nature. But what changed? The tools we use. We could do it much easier than us having to do it much harder back in the day based upon limited ideas or whatever. So we are evolving together. But when we think about evolving, we can't put that on the flesh. If you out of order, you would think science and technology is evolving. No, we are just I can't get jiggy with teaching. We just evolving into making things easier for us. So instead of you having a hard chair, science and technology made a convenience. You got a lazy boy chair. You know what I'm saying? That was it though. I mean, don't try to say it like it's anything different beyond that, because then that's when y'all over exaggerate. Then things that human made, y'all start saying it's because of God or something like that. Then that faulty concept of what y'all calling God or whatever. God gave you something that catered to your bias or something like that. That's already the wrong starting point, because a tree ain't got nothing to do with your bias or whatever. There may be things on a tree like fruit that can cater to your bias, but in all actuality, that tree ain't open up his mouth and say it. I'm just here for you. That's why sometimes you can find a fruit hanging from a tree and an ant on it, or a worm in it, or something like that. You know what I'm saying? So, you know what I'm saying? Y'all got another weird concept in your mind where a convenience that another human made because they got lazy at some point and made more intelligence about how can I make myself lazier. And that was the intelligence, the technology that was the lazy boy chair or whatever. And then y'all claim that got something to do with all possibilities or that got something to do with God or whatever. And well, I guess God got something to do with y'all having diabetes waistlines and stuff like that. I get marshmallow neckline. You know what I'm saying? Diabetes in the left thyroid knuckle and stuff. You know what I'm saying? Let's get busy. No, I said everybody go to the Matrix. You know what I'm saying? Those are all disclaimers. Those all disclaimers. It was all disclaimers. You know what I'm saying? We're gonna get a live stream right now. We're gonna get a good live stream. You know what I'm saying? I look Pete. Gang. When it comes to I don't need no incense right now. You know what I'm saying? Now, Pete Gang, when it comes to learning and knowing. Now, here's the thing, right? You're constantly going through this in your life. But for the most part, y'all be in situations where you're not looking at this in the right way. It ain't what we're looking at, it's how we looking at it. And that how is not being part of a large percentage of it is not a large percentage of energy being focused in that area when you're going through your day-to-day, right? And things like this will make you think you have to have things on your mind throughout the day that will make it hard, but your life is hard because of the things you have on your mind and not willing to separate from those things and have this on your mind that actually make these things much easier and whatever the case may be. So a lot of times people just have thinking problems or what they're forced to think about, and the high percentage scale, but the importance that they put behind it a lot of times is what make a person feel like what's worthwhile thinking about or not. And a lot of times y'all think about a bunch of bullshit, but it's not made to look like that because there's other factors involved, right? Let's say Walt Disney, that's just generalizing TV and stuff like that, right? It's like one thing making you think it's important or whatever the case may be, but in all actuality, it ain't. But it's other factors involved. Walt Disney, the platform, the narratives that was created to make it appear that this is important and other things ain't, and whatever the case may be, or this is with success and this ain't. So all those other factors cloud your judgment on what's actual part into your life or not. You know what I'm saying? Or germane to your life or not, and things of that nature. And then for the most part, you attach things that really ain't, and then start having what we call societal peer pressures. Now you got societal peer pressures, if that's even a thing, but y'all know how to put those together. In society, based on social norms, you have peer pressures if you don't have these things that Walt Disney made us think that if you don't have it, you won't be successful, or this is what it looks like to have a comfortable life, or whatever the case may be. So then when you don't have these things, a lot of times, one of these first results we can see on a mass scale online is maybe the characteristics that's coming from a red pill individual, or maybe the characteristics that's coming from a feminist, or whatever the case may be, or whatever. And then you could kind of listen to what they're describing. They're describing kind of something that have cloud their judgment based upon Wizard of Oz. It's just an allegory of, TV and networking and stuff like that, right? And other people's mind states that was raising other people as we be born on this land, and we don't run these programs to get programmed with, or whatever the case may be. Then, once a female don't have that Cinderella shoe, once a young male don't have that, oil, being a tin man or having that heart, because they lack it being a lion or whatever the case may be, right? Then for the most part, then they start to overcompensate, and these overcompensations become another blinding, right? General Motors may teach you overcompensation is a nice set of rims. You know what I'm saying? This beauty thing may teach you overcompensation is wearing a pound of makeup all the time, or whatever the case may be. But you know what I'm saying? Then you just get into these things, and then you start to realize you're living a life based upon subsidiaries, things that don't necessarily have anything to do with the actual root. And this is what I'm calling societal peer pressures. You know what I'm saying? God don't want you to be lost in these things, because these things are created from other individuals who had internal successes and internal insecurities just like you. So your ability to learn about yourself, you're learning about, the more you can learn about yourself, the more you can help someone else out if they share the similar organs. So you doing yourself Justice, doing something your own individual particular way, allow someone else to do things in their own particular way. And then that's that simultaneous energy. Y'all doing the same thing, just in different ways. But that's how we're all able to connect and get closer to God. We're all doing something just in our own individual way, or whatever the case may be. So once we all understand that, we all can have some common understanding and separate from any dichotomy or bias that end up playing out too large on a percentage scale for us to connect or be relatable in some way, shape, or form. So there should be always a way to be relatable and sync, all the way to having a worst enemy, but both having some genuine or some internal confirmation and agreements that you go your way and I go my way, or whatever the case may be, because we both know that this causes an issue on a negative end of whatever that we're doing that can't resolve the issues. So, but if we could find some relatability and synchronizing energy, even if we can't get along, we're still with God, and whatever problem we did create, that's what God give grace to. And then we still not harming ourselves and others in the meantime. You see what I'm saying? So, yeah, if we can't be in a world with that type of communion, this is how y'all not able to understand how things work and get lost into certain things. But it comes with an aspect of knowing and learning. So for the most part, having to figure out or knowing, regardless of the physical factors, that comes second. Always understand the physical factors come second, right? The spirit emanate the first creation, the first body, the mind. Then that condense and become the second body, the physical. So the space, the spirit, multiple individual spirit, soul, solo spirit, that's non-corporeal. Then the internal fleshly fluids is the mentality, the mind that you're making. That one is what's going to condense and become corporeal. So that's the one that's in between, right? So when I say on a broad scale, the only thing between the universe and God, all possibilities, is you, that mind and that physical. But for the most part, the condensing, the universe is a collection of all the things, right? And then the space is an absence of that collection. So what's creating the collection of all things? The space. All things is getting emanated in that space as a context or whatever. So all those things represent space. So we make all possibilities possible. See what I'm saying? So for the most part, that's the only thing in between God and the universe. You. See what I'm saying? So these are the forms, universe, and for the most part, all of us are spiritual spaces emanate that. And the more that you know how to separate from those layers, the closer you get to God and be more part of the creation of what we are experiencing within this universe. So you are part of the things that make the world go around, not necessarily the one trying to control the things that go around. So that's actually how you see who have actual power or not too. Not this false concept, y'all got a power, or things of that nature. There's a concept where we see how things work, and there's a mechanism, there's a song, there's a synchronicity, right? So obviously that mechanism produces what we're calling what make the world go around, our necessities, your needs or whatever, right? So if God didn't give you that talent to present something, now we got physical representations of these things, we'll say that's clothes, music, food. But your ability to cultivate these things or give these things expression or whatever the case may be, right? Or and beyond that, the creativity in the aspect, right? That's you being a creator of something. So that's actual power. Then you have those that only know how to see that from a distance. Then you have a lot of people who may have practiced ways to even capitalize on those type of concepts or whatever the case may be. But here's where things get foggy, where you think a person who utilize a convenience based upon weakness, and a person who have actual gold or whatever the case may be, and a person who may have utilized something that don't got no gold, may have caused persuasion, made something important and made that look like it's successful, but then it lack all the qualities of what makes the world go around. Then we'll see that this is a scavenger of the things that make the world go around. So this person would, regardless of what they saying and what external thing that they took, you will be able to see they're just an esoteric parasite. They're taking the things that make the world go around, whether it's food, somebody else's talent, whether it's an idea, whether, you see what I'm saying? So this is an individual that God didn't give anything to. And this person was supposed to find the mechanism or procedures of how things work to actually have power, and what y'all trying to call influence or whatever the case may be. But when you don't have that, you're just in a world lacking what we would transmute that word as what we call attention or whatever the case may be. And a person would do anything for attention, act retarded, do retarded stuff, try to control others that got it or whatever. And it ain't really about attention or influence at all. It's you got some God gift that got something to do with what makes the world go around. And there's other procedures and processes that's beyond what we cling our biases and dichotomies to. You can have a thought process that's more closer to what makes the world go around than a thought process that make a person always fall off somewhere or lose their life or whatever the case may be. And you may not be looking at it that way because you ain't have your spiritual next door homie to be listening to teach you things about spirituality like that, the Esoteric Hood Pilot's medicine man, right? Shout out to my medicine women out there. But for the most part, right, you might not been in that aspect, but there's other processes going on that still has that same credence for you to learn. And just clinging on to these things. Well, I had another point, but y'all get what I'm trying to say. But at the same time, just understanding these things, you will start to see that, oh, okay, there's a process that's going on that I don't even look at as a process. And when you let these things pass and stuff like that, this is how you miss what's right in front of you. You miss the whole little God concept, right? And all these other things but when it is coming to the taking and the giver, right? The giver is one who gives life. That's who makes the world go around. So that's a creative individual or whatever the case. Then you have people who ain't creative, and then they create weird concepts of what being creative is, which is why there's a such thing as someone being able to sue somebody for copyrights or trademark or whatever the case may be, but you're not the owner of that intellectual property. You know what I'm saying? You just fantasized about it or whatever the case. You wrote a book about somebody else or something like that, or made a video game about other people doing Grand Theft Auto in California or something like that. You know what I'm saying? So it's like we in a weird world right now where if you don't fight for your God rights, it'll be a whole bunch of weird fraud things replacing that or whatever the case may be. And now, even when you know something, you can't really do nothing about it until you create the whole space that the creativity is supposed to be in as a field of a pocket. Because that's y'all problem. Y'all don't know how to create a system for your creativity or whatever the case. So y'all start leaning and depending on a system that ain't even built on creativity. It's built on taking creativity. You will never be able to make that work. You'll never be. The system is basically built off of people who uncreative, and that's how they survive. What make you think that you can update that or something like that? That wouldn't make no sense. Y'all just gotta stop being weak-minded or whatever the case may be. And whatever y'all be fighting for ain't even worth fighting for. Y'all come up with weird things to fight for. You ain't even supposed to play somebody's game. You play somebody else's game. You know what I'm saying? For an example, right? You might got something else you got going on and some mineral that you doing or whatever that you got the idea God gave you to make that important or whatever the case may be. So you wouldn't even have to step on nobody's toes in the oil game, in the oil world, because what you do don't have anything to do with oil. So who cares? You know what I'm saying? It's like y'all don't get in that space. Y'all like to fight over other things that somebody else made important. That a lot of these things ain't important. Go find something important for yourself. So your kids can start looking at that like that's important to take that up or whatever like that. Like find something important. Just stop sitting around reacting to everything. And everybody got to have that importance energy. And when you don't know how to develop that for yourself, because you're not looking at life that way, anybody could dump something on you, make you think something important. You know what I'm saying? Y'all just start living y'all life and start developing trial and tribulations of something that ain't even important. You making it important. You know what I'm saying? You made it important. But for the most part, is the thing. Peeling back each layer of life to the smallest minute, to understand each transition of creation and what starts the energy of something in its beginning stage, right? Of something in its beginning stage, pardon me, in this realm of simultaneous qualities, right? So everything starts from a simultaneous quality before it leads into a dichotomy or a bias. So when it's in the smallest stage, it's getting in its most vague stage, and it's getting into that process of knowing the beginnings of that mechanism, right? So you don't look at it as big or small. Something can be big in that small world. That's why I say make something simple, then go deep. Don't go deep in that small or that big world, then try to make something simple in one of those worlds. You in a big lost world trying to make something simple and you think you got it. You in a small world trying to make something simple. You just small minded. You know what I'm saying? It's a simpleton. So you got to understand things are just a happening, not necessarily for you to automatically accept a bias because your mind and body represents a bias in itself. Your individuality represents your spirit represents the essence of what a bias is, your own particular observation point. You know what I'm saying? Then your mind, your starting reference for the first time, your awareness. So you already know, okay, there's a such thing as bias, but as long as you stay in that space, your own bias don't get in the way of understanding the objective or the totality of something. So once you understand that, you even know when you're making a mistake or you even know when you're doing something right. It's a small percentage scale of your bias that's always going to be attached, but you know what percentage scale to keep it at. You know not to let it get too far high, too high, or whatever the case may be, because these are created for you to be living for things that ain't got nothing to do with the actual point of anything. Because when you think about a bias, that's your spirit creating a concept with your mind, the same way y'all create the mind and the body, and y'all create physical representations that we call conveniences. So a bias ain't nothing but a spiritual technology, the spirit going in some type of esoteric Home Depot to create some shelter, to work on some building shelter or whatever the case may be. So your bias is a convenience. And anytime things become inconvenient, your bias is getting challenged. The end. That's how you make something simple. Then when these situations happen, your depth of it, you're more aware. You're like outside looking in that world and having to experience being within that world because you're having that physical experience or whatever. Or you're having that mental or however it's planned out. So you know how to deal with the situation a lot better or whatever the case may be. But when y'all not looking at it from that aspect, this is how things get out of hand. But for the most part, knowing versus learning is one of these states, is one of these simultaneous states. When we start to think about things in its beginnings in the realm of simultaneous, knowing and learning is one of these states. And if you can catch throughout your current living and mental conditions, right? If you could catch it at each state and ground it and solidify all these things you do know between, all these things you know between the things you are currently in process of learning and the things that you are already knowing. I kind of messed that up, so let me go back. Knowing versus learning is one of these simultaneous states, right? That sometimes you don't know which one you in, but if you could kind of look at each step of life, at each instant, you'll catch mechanisms, you'll catch patterns, and you'll know what side you're on and how to deal with it accordingly. See what I'm saying? So these is one of these states, knowing versus learning. And if you can catch it throughout your current living and mental conditions, you can ground it and solidify all the things you do know between the things you are still currently in the process of learning to develop that kind of mental stimuli and that knowing of creation. There will be things you thought you knew and was sure about but wasn't right about, and there would be things that you wasn't sure about and was actually right, but due to the fact of your bias or your living conditions or your mental circumstance, you thought it was wrong or whatever the case. And you'll start, once you get into that space, you'll start to build your mental muscle. Now here's the thing, right? Y'all don't get scared at life because you'll get confused on what meditation is, right? Meditating ain't sitting and pondering. Meditating is sitting and clearing your space so you can allow new floods of light and waters and clouds to come in. So when you, now that's you putting you're getting out of that mental fog every time it come up that you're in. You're trying to get it away and not think about it. So you're trying to get as empty as possible. That's you getting out of that mental egg and getting into another spiritual space. And the one you develop there, you'll be able to look at the other one from a different space and attack it with new form, new body, new swords and shields, a new idea, a new circumstance, or whatever the case. So that's meditation. And the longer you meditate, the more you're fulfilling yourself with new thoughts that ain't got nothing to do with that previous one, because you're not pondering on stuff, especially if it's negative stuff. And then for the most part, when you jump back in these things, when you get out of your meditation space, meditative space, right? Because meditation is just whatever put you in your meditative space, just listening to music or whatever the case. There's no regular way. You know what I'm saying? But for the most part, everybody got their own way, especially when it comes to fire, water, air, and earth signs. But when you do that, or whatever the case may be, that allows you to have new thoughts and be able to express these things. Now, the reason why I'm saying that is because when you're in this process and trying to understand if you're learning or knowing, and then you're going to be in this concept of sometimes you're right, but sometimes you thought you was right, but you wrong, and sometimes you thought you was wrong, but you right, or whatever the case may be. Don't ponder on that before you go on your situations. Just having that awareness, you're letting it accumulate. You're letting it work on its own. So now you in that space with that small awareness, now you're going to develop awareness, not with that focus on, oh, I want to only expect this. Therefore, all other happenings you'll be blind to. And therefore, that allows you to already know, you in a knowing. So regardless of how it planned out physically, you know it's coming from that space, and maybe another spirit in that space developing their mind tool before it become physical, or whatever the case may be. And another disclaimer of why I'm bringing up meditation too, because that goes for a lot of things. A lot of things always get cosplayed and sold. So y'all be thinking there's a certain way to do something, but these examples was created based upon some culture getting colonized and capitalized and made money off of, right? So that's why a lot of these things don't work. And y'all go to church and think y'all getting the Holy Ghost. So y'all go to a lot of these things or whatever, these groupings and whatever, and they think meditation groupings, and it don't work, or whatever the case may be. So you have to understand, a lot of times y'all have colonial, and I'm not racist, but in this conversation right here, colonial European mind states at times, like y'all way of thinking about things. So you'll be like, I got to go meditate. Let me go somewhere over here, or this, that, and the third. That's what a settler came up with. Leaving their land, coming somewhere else, not really knowing what other people's cultures is doing, and still trying to figure out while being lost mentally and physically and spiritually. Lost mentally, not having the culture, so cause plan, lost physically, not on the land, their original land anymore, lost spiritually. The spirit was there first, so it made up the mental and physical qualities and the physical representations and experiences. But at the same time, that's where that come from. So instead of you going to your meditated individual way of how you meditate, your meditated place, right? You think you're not doing something, and everybody naturally find a meditative space, but something else will go wrong in your life. Walt Disney will teach you that that's your bias you have, that you made important and Walt Disney made important, and then you will leave your meditated space that actually take care of all your problems and help you in a better space, and then go somewhere and think that you need a psychologist or go need a meditation clinic or something like that, or a psychic ward. And because Walt Disney taught you this the way to meditate, this the way to yoga, this the way to do this, or whatever the case may be, and you just get ready to get colonized and capitalized and stuff like that. It ain't had nothing to do with nothing. You know what I'm saying, everything's supposed to be created the way how your mother and father, especially your mother, just naturally know what to do when something got stuck down your damn tongue and throat when you was a baby and you only 6 months year old and stuff like that. There's nothing to have to teach nobody how to do these type of things. You see what I'm saying? Y'all like retarded about life. Learn life first, and then you'll be able to understand everything and not over exaggerate what you're giving credence and importance to. But for the most part, here's the thing, and you'll start to give more importance to yourself too. You start to care about your ideas, what you have to offer to the world, or just that energy of what puts you in your meditated or presence or whatever. And that matters more than anybody. You know what I'm saying? Because that don't take anybody in the world. That just take you. You could be in the worst state in your life. And if you could find that internal space, you in a better state than someone else who in a similar situation as you, or whatever the case may be. So you'll be a living representation of that. Someone who can handle that next to someone who can't. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So as long as you can find synchronicity and relatability energy, it ain't never an excuse. It ain't never an excuse. You know what I'm saying? Because once you ain't got the mind, I don't care if you're still in that worse situation as someone else. You didn't take your life. Whatever, how hard it was, that person may have took their life. You see what I'm saying? So it ain't never no excuse. God don't never give excuses. And God want everybody to know you don't only do it one time. So when you live like that, you make a lot of mistakes. Like you ain't gonna have to deal with that and stuff. And before y'all even pass on and stuff like that, y'all be dealing with that in y'all dreams And then y'all dreams ain't even always when y'all sleep. You always in your first body, your first mind. I mean, your mind, your first body. So y'all carry a lot of this in y'all situations and circumstances, and they start playing out in the way how your elbow move, how y'all handle situations and circumstances. You already be living in a certain way. You be claiming that you justify what you're doing in the first place because you think nothing matters tomorrow, or you think it don't matter in the afterlife, whatever. Afterlife just means your life after this one. You know what I'm saying? Don't over exaggerate what that is or whatever the case may be. You know what I'm saying? Real, that was all kind of examples you can see in the world first before you over exaggerate. The mind create and become physical, not you using your mind and it ain't physical no more or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So you gotta understand. You can see that bush that was there, and then it wasn't there in the fall and winter time, and then in the springtime it was there, or whatever the case may be. What make you think you don't have that same kind of form because you're lost in your bias and dichotomy and what somebody taught you what you are because of the term human. And so they made up the word human, made up the concept of what a human can do and what a human can't do, and you still lost in your mind. That ain't got nothing to do with a human about it. You know what I'm saying? So you ain't gonna never be able to pick your mind up and weigh it or whatever the case may be. So at some point, there you go again, living for things unimportant. You know what I'm saying? Things that ain't got nothing to do with nothing. But if you get tapped into life, you will know exactly what I'm talking about. You will know that. Don't waste your time on them stupid thoughts. You know what I'm saying? You could be learning so much. And here's the thing, right? A lot of people who are already damaged and don't know aspects of life, because they haven't went through no journey that lead into other areas of life. So they'll say what I'm saying is bullshit, right? But these would be the same people that lack creativity. Here's the thing: when you're a creative person, you learn things in your life that also play out in other pockets that don't have anything to do with it. You could be a person that, if you're a creator, you understand there's certain mechanisms and processes it takes to make something else. That could be looking at something else that inspire you or whatever the case may be, and you creative know how to make it in sync or relatable with that thing or whatever, right? So just getting into a certain space when you're trying to create something a lot of times allows you to find, I had another point too, but allows you to find, pardon me, allows you to find other pockets that a person would say is bull crap in. So for an example, oh yeah, that's what I was about to say. So for an example, you being in a creative space will lead you to the same area I'm talking about that another person will be saying what I'm saying right now is pseudo, or saying, oh, these things don't mean nothing, or whatever the case may be. But for the most part, here's the thing: when you in your creative space, you know that you always trying to get inspired. So we know when the spirit is fulfilled. You got to make things simple. When the spirit is fulfilled, right, it has to do something else, even something negative to what it's already fulfilled on, so it can get into a new space to fulfill that in. So if you a creator so long in this area, right, you will start to know that you have certain things you already fulfilled. You get uninspired. You have to go find new inspirations and stuff like that. Once you be doing that so long, you find other things to get inspired by, or whatever the case may be. And the things I'm talking about is where it will lead you to, where the average person will be saying this pseudo is actually like a pocket in existence that you also pull inspiration from if you was creative, and you would know that because your creativity has to be steered in a direction. And for the most part, let's say you have a certain motive. How many different generative principles you could come up with that motive? How many different allegories? How many different angles? That means how many times you've been in that world, and how well rounded how traveled you in that world, or whatever the case may be. So you can make this thing we all doing, but you got your own version of whatever you do in whatever angle, and you can make it in so many different ways and so many different. That's what makes a person creative, and not dry, go through a drought, say the same joke in a different way and thinking it's going to get the same laughter or whatever the case may be. You see what I'm saying? So this is a process. It's a process. But like I said, experiences are mental first, then physical. That's why you could share the same physical experience as someone, but have totally different mental perspectives about it, all the way to the dislikes and likes. So knowing or learning the mental makeup of something will allow you to have intelligence beyond the physical representation and the subjective way it plays out through an individual. So it doesn't matter if it's a circumstance, situation, person, place, or thing.
They all have their own particular way of going about something. Every individual can go to the essence and see what world that come from as one thing itself. For an example, right? There's a thief in energy itself. So it doesn't matter if you what Mike, Tom, or Jimmy. Mike got a different way of being a thief. Tom got a different way of being a thief. Jimmy got a different way, and Peter, Rod, Paul in a different way, or whatever the case may be, right? Now, one may come figured out from a distance on how to come like Peter and then rock you to sleep because they convinced you that they was on your side based off what Jimmy just did to you and rocked you to sleep or whatever the case may be. But for the most part, here's the thing. These are just different physical traits, but they all come from the same world. See what I'm saying? And if you can't see the essence of what we're all doing and to go to that world where we all can do it at, here's how you would get rocked to sleep by different day, same shit, different day qualities or whatever the case. No matter the person, place, or thing, you're going through the same circumstance, right? And then your only excuse is, well, I thought, well, I feel, or I felt, but you're still in the same situation. That person still rocked you to sleep. You still went broke. You see what I'm saying? So, for the most part, this is what God teaches us in God, the holy ones, the star people world. You see what I'm saying? How to look at the space a spirit is in, so you can understand the essence of that whole world, because space is all of our spirits, and we just fulfill these things with our own individual way of playing that out in that world first, and then we play it out in the physical in that way, however we want to cover it up and make it look. Beam it down like a Scotty light ray or whatever the case, right? But if you're able to learn more about that mental aspect that ain't always tangible, you back in order. You back in spirit, mind, body, then the external. So when you're back in order, you're able to catch the spirit space part. Oh, this energy is coming from this spiritual space, those collection of spirits in that space that's fulfilling that pocket. And then for the most part, boom, now you're able to catch the influence of it, the feeling of it, the sense of it. Oh, I know. Not me having to figure out. I know what's going on. Now, then the third, that be the part that we come up with the terminology of figuring something out. But you will already have a knowing. The only figuring out is it this leaf or that plant? Is it this person or that plant? Is it this situation or circumstance or that plant? I was using everything with plant. You know, everybody plants today, industry plant. But it's generalizing. You see what I'm saying? And then for the most part, when you're looking at it from that aspect, right? Therefore, these things become less of importance because they all start looking the same once your spirit get bigger and the first body, the mind you're making in that space gets stronger, the mental muscle, then everything that comes from that world, you done already flew around all them cities and states of beings where your being, your spirit be at in those states of awarenesses, you know what I'm saying? Gas, liquid, then down to solid, you know what I'm saying? All that stuff, you didn't seen all those. So any other building or structure or spaceship a person could make up there, you know how they made it. You know where they got it from. You know, only those colors come from that space. You know what I'm saying? That's why I only see colors and numbers. But that's how you explain colors and numbers and things of that nature. You know what I'm saying? Blue would be more like intellect, the way that they describe it. But I just see it more as what's coming from vagueness. So it's the first desire. Then when that desire need assistance, you add that vagueness again, but it just add more condensity to the thing you was just on. So now that thing it was just on, the next thing is smaller than that thing, or it adds on to that thing, and then we could create condensity energy, or something could be inside of something energy, right? So that takes blue to green. Then once that pop more, then it turns on fire or whatever. Then that turns into like a yellow, right? Then once that turned yellow, you have a transitional stage. Then that transitional stage start to like move. But when something moved, the area it was in has a dead remnants. We call that radiation or whatever. That's like red or whatever. Then once that start to condense, implode into each other in the smaller versions to become one thing, we start to get more darkness like purple or whatever. And purple is like pleasure that comes from pain that comes from pleasure. So if you know how to accomplish that, you could be considered spiritual royalty. You see what I'm saying? So when we think about that, that's like the womb, you know what I'm saying? Dead blood cells, hair, skin, and nail, dirt, you know what I'm saying? The world or whatever, which basically what these things is on a godly scale or whatever. So when you're thinking about emanation, right, or having the idea, that's like the blueness. So you'll know if someone is heavy in the idea or light in the idea or airheaded or not by understanding it from that simple aspect, right? Then you'll know if it's green, if it's something growing. This is an idea that they've been thinking about for a minute. So their elbow only going to move a certain way. They're only going to express it a certain way, even if they're coming across like they're being gullible. You'll know if a person playing you as a fool, acting like the fool at the moment, lying, making you feel like they're the fool for alternative reasons that you are unrenowned to, that at the end of it all, you end up being a fool or however the case may be. You know what I'm saying? That's just what it took to get tricky. But for the most part, that's being alien, like that's green, right? Then for the most part, because everything in reverse in the spiritual world, a person that's already lost in these energies in the physical, you will be gullible and will be considered green to someone who's in this position in the mental before condensed as you having the context of it in the physical representation, and your skin ain't even green. You probably ain't even got on nothing green that day or whatever, but you get ready to get alienated in some way, shape, or form from whatever that you had that someone was looking at and get ready to take it right up off your ass. You know what I'm saying? Then you get into the light. Then you get it like yellow or whatever the case may be. That's someone giving attention to the blue and the green, giving attention to an idea that they want to grow, and they already sure about it before we get into an ego. You know what I'm saying? But for the most part, that's when it becomes yellow. So they're getting ready to set some on fire. That's just giving a spotlight to something. You know what I'm saying? So we'll be able to determine if it's lit or not. If it's in sync and relatable, our spotlight and that spotlight itself will grow or whatever like that and become bright. If it's somewhere not catering to or whatever the case may be, we'll start throwing shade on it and not give it attention. So eventually it'll go out, or if that individual want to spark it and keep it lit, right? But it ain't in sync or it ain't relatable. Here's where you get a narcissist. Here where you get someone that's going through insanity, doing the same thing, thinking that they're going to get different results or whatever the case may be. No, I don't care how many banks you rob. They're not going to change the law and say that we can rob banks. I don't care how many times you come. You know what I'm saying? So it's just that simple. Then you get into the aspect of once something has been given life and wanted to be expressed and gave attention to, then it had passed its starting point, have been given life, and now it's reached its deterioration until it get ready to expire or whatever. So this is where you get something have to move along, something not as lit as it used to be, but it was or it wasn't or whatever, or something having to be let go. And if you stay in it, that thought and feeling mental body, your spirit to be inside of it thinking it's the mind out of order, and now you feeling a spiritual death, or you feeling down, or your thoughts is depressed, or your feelings and emotions is like, you know what I'm saying? And for the most part, you gotta get out of that hellistic state, because ain't nobody told you can't just change a mental body, change a thought and feeling. You know what I'm saying? So you get too depressed about what the physical representations have already came to be. And then you just get lost into that whole spiritual space without knowing. Change your spiritual space up. So you start developing different mind states. And then therefore, you'll start to see that from a whole different angle from what's been condensing. And you'll start to build on different physical representations and experiences and things of that nature. And it's just that simple. You know what I'm saying? It's just that simple. You know what I'm saying? Little Timmy and Mike, they both wanted to play basketball or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Mike had the idea when they was going through not having no cereal on top of the refrigerator and stuff like that. Well, when I go to basketball practice or whatever, you know what I'm saying? Little Timmy had the idea, you know what I'm saying? Well, I go kick a dough, kick a couple of doughs or whatever the case may be. Okay, Mike grew up to become a rich basketball player or whatever. Timmy, we never know. Michael Jordan had a little goddamn friend named Timmy when he was 6 years old. We'll never know it. We'll never know it. But see how they both was in the same situation. One just changed their mind state and got out of it somehow. One didn't change their mind state, didn't get out of it. Both was at a time thinking shit wasn't gonna go nowhere though. You see what I'm saying? It's all about the mind. It ain't no excuse. It ain't no excuse. That's one thing God said. That's one thing. Somebody depressed right now because they got arthritis in the left knee knuckle or whatever the case may be. And watch God show them somebody on YouTube or something like that blow up or something in a wheelchair. Can't even walk. Crazy legs. You know what I'm saying? Like, it ain't no excuse. It ain't like you ain't even allowed to wake up every morning like, God, why my right kneecap got eczema? You ain't allowed to do that. You ain't allowed to do that no more. You know what I'm saying? God just put somebody in front of you that smile. Every day you click online, the algorithm, TikTok, I get somebody smiling in a wheelchair. You ain't allowed to, and the more you want to act like that you don't want to smile when you wake up, you will be in a wheelchair. The next time you don't want to see somebody else who, goddamn it, ain't Lieutenant Dane. They ain't got no legs or whatever the case may be. You know what I'm saying? You don't want to smile then, you might not have had no life. God take it right from you. No, that's how God works.
God ain't got nothing to do with no other human, no nothing. God got something to do with you and you. And anytime somebody make it up, it got something to do with anything else, especially how y'all be online and it be somebody talk about God is with you, you gonna hit the lottery about something. God gonna make sure your bank account full. That's God full of shit. That's some damn leprechaun God. God ain't got shit to do with nobody making no damn banks in general and shit like that. What made you think that shit? Oh, I'm saying. I'll be tripping sometimes. Y'all be tripping as humans sometimes, man. I love y'all though. But let's check this out, right? So like I said, experiences are mental first, then physical. That's why you can share the same physical experiences as someone, but have totally different mental perspectives about it, all the way down to the likes and dislikes. So knowing and learning and mental makeup of something would allow you to have intelligence beyond the physical representation and the subjective way it plays out through an individual. So that way you'll be able to see it doesn't matter. No one can fake the funk. You know what spiritual space they in. And this created the concept of everything happening for a reason. You know what I'm saying? You're basically figuring out how things work beyond what you see. So this is how you make sense out of mysterious ways, how things work mysterious. We do this every day, point to things we can't see, but we're making sense out of something. And when we utilize it in the things we can see, the decision-making quality either shows we're more relatable in sync and something works in favor, or something unrelatable and it's unsync and it didn't work in favor. We do that all the time. You're not looking at it like that. Y'all don't give yourselves importance like that and stuff. I don't know why. You know what I'm saying? But tell me if you go somewhere and weigh your mind or something like that. But you just think about it all the time. Y'all allow other people to come up with words to make something simple in your mind. I mean, not the simpleton way. You know what I'm saying? Like the retarded way. Not the way I'm teaching y'all. Like y'all got, and simple might have been the wrong term for it. Make something not important, or make something seem like, nah, in that type of simple way. So since you're doing it all the time, someone could just slap a word on there. Oh, you're thinking. Oh, that's a mind. Okay, next. Okay, you still have to think and use your mind for the things you get ready to do next, or whatever the case may be. But since you got a word for it and someone slapped the meaning on it, you're looking at it like physical things. So at some point, you're looking at it like, man, everything physical. Your mind ain't. Yet you got a mind. So now you're going to come up with something else dumb. Or is this attached to the brain or whatever? Then where was your brain at to start thinking before you was born? Why did it take that to come second, or whatever the case may be? You was in somebody's mind first. You know what I'm saying? So for the most part, the first body is the mind then. So obviously it's a substance. And what you're calling physical is just another human slapping a word and a meaning onto something, or whatever the case may be. But if you just know how to look at something, you'll see, okay, this is a process. Less dense things become more dense as a collection. So once you're looking at it, you start to learn, okay, that's a process. That's a mechanism. That's a whole breakdown. That's for a whole nother live stream though. But it ain't hard to understand how life and the life process is, or whatever the case may be. Or whatever the case may be, y'all get lost in someone slapping a word and a meaning on it that ain't got nothing to do with something. See what I'm saying? For an example, a tree ain't got nothing to do with what we call it a tree. A tree is just for us to have some type of communion on understanding, or what we calling something, or whatever the case may be. And then that's a kind of like a England German concept, because really everything is family. Animals, everything where you're from and your land, or whatever the case may be, the tree, the animals, or whatever the case may be, right? Y'all might not know how to understand that if like foreigner concept, if you got that more in your mind. But what do I mean by that? It's not actually saying it's a spirit in a tree, but let's say you stayed in an area for a long time and that tree been in y'all backyard since y'all remember. You start to add that to other things that it could be connected to, but the representation and the way of explaining it for a person that ain't around you may not understand and come up with their own idea. It might think, oh, you're saying a spirit in a tree, or whatever the case, where that tree is family because it's been there just as long as you, or whatever. So the tree got a name and everything with that nature. And who's to say before the collection of humans was there, you wasn't every piece and particle, all the way to every parasite, all the way to every bacteria, through the whole form of evolution coming from the sky, water, and the land, or whatever the case may be. So for the most part, who's to say that ain't the concept? So us just treating things and life and nature
unnaturally for the most part. That's why things become so synthetic and how y'all living. So y'all live a whole GMO concept that don't have anything to do with life or whatever. And the only thing that became sacrificed is your creativity and the gift that God give us all. The ability to have to do the things that make the world go around. And anytime a person lack the ability, even on the smallest percentage scale, a small piece will make a spirit happy. Anytime a spirit lack any quality, because this is a whole list, but anytime a spirit lack a quality of one of the things that make the world go around, that's a depressed spirit. And anytime a spirit had that quality and lost it, that's a depressed spirit and don't know what to do with themselves or whatever the case may be. It could be the GMO world that they're in, depending on their expertise or their quality or their talent or whatever the case may be, where that gold got them everything so they can relax. But here's the thing, they could be millionaires and still depressed if they left that spiritual space where they created that mental gold that got them all that in the first place. A person to take all these things won't be comfortable, use it to crash out, harm themselves, harm others, still appear to be a depressed individual of things, because the spirit world is real. When your spirit know when you out of order, your spirit know when you're away from God. And no matter what you did in the physical world, what Walt Disney may have taught us to make us think that we closer to God, you will know something ain't right. And you can have all those tangibles and stuff like that. You just something won't be right. And just as beautiful as these things are, in your hands, it appear to be ugly. And this is how we get into those concepts of a man with power can become very ugly hearted and in the spirit and stuff like that. You see what I'm saying? So we have to be careful. Be careful with ourselves. But like I said, you're basically figuring out how things work beyond this use of the word work and what we use the word work towards. Every characteristic has a process and a mechanism of how it started and how it's planned out, which created the concept of everything happens for a reason. So I'm teaching y'all how to look at things when it comes into things you can't see, but it's apparent, because the world is created off awareness. And I love all y'all from the bottom of my heart. Flight Fuck me, for sure. You're not listening to the Mind of an Terry's Moon. I'm the Royal Archangel Uriel. I gotta do these responsibilities. I'm about to go in. This whole little springs, I'm doing videos for every song in existence, every album in existence. I'm about to inspire all y'all musicians how to do stuff right. And even y'all older artists and stuff like that. That's how you get back in it. You could do something lit right now. Your old songs start popping. Everything is new. We in a new age. We're in a new age. A lot of y'all got whole songs, mixtapes that, yeah, people heard it, but it can hit now or whatever the case may be. And then a whole bunch of people who never heard it is this new music is just music. That's just one pocket of what make the world go around. Everything, all the way to clothes, is a lot of things. And you will start to realize that a lot of these problems come from the taste problems that we have from these things ain't the thing itself. It's the how it's done. And a lot of the colonial tactics behind it, the capitalism tactics behind it, is what ruins something. If these things could be transmuted to support more of the gold aspect, the creativity aspect of it, the gold will lead the cobalt aspect, the constructing of it, to be more flourishing. But if the cobalt constructing capitalism concept become more of an importance, then the creativity become less, then there's nothing to capitalize off of. So we got to transmute how we're seeing things, right? But here's the problem when it comes into industries and stuff like that. Based on previous things and previous rollouts and what was successful and what didn't work, that unexpected, it's like a demonic world. I don't look at demonic and godly the way y'all look at it. Expectation, that's more close to demonic, where you could be lost into something and you're blocked off from seeing the many other ways it could come. So the quality of suspense or being unsure or investing even into something that there's not something out there already that was previously the success or the rollout, and it could lead into an unknown world, or it could fail or whatever. All these qualities is in the industry lens of not good business. Yet, separating from the cobalt mine, that's where all the creativity comes from in the first place before something can become good business anyway. So there has to be a different objective and optics on how we're doing this new age business. You know what I'm saying? There has to be a refocus on what we're giving importance to. And what's actually, and knowing it, not just being, if you start to understand mechanisms and stuff like that, you start to understand, no, that is what it is, regardless of what may be a physical representation of what may have worked, what didn't work. That's fading anyway. We're in a new shift. There's a process that you're supposed to be able to see that's the starting point of something being what may have I been lost in based upon expectation and it's previously, so that's the only thing I'm safe in. And see, if the industry can get out of that quality, they can start reaching this new gold too. You know what I'm saying? Because the gold mines need help, just like you cobalt mines. People who industry minded, people who know how to capitalize real good. You know what I'm saying? But there has to be more of a blending of equality when it comes into the balancing of these things. You know what I'm saying? We've been going for the past 70, 150 years more on the side of the cobalt mine being more of importance and the creativity lessening. Before that, once we get to the early 1800s, 1700s, it may have came with a lot more clashes and fighting, but the creativity was at such a high scale. That's why even when it led into what we call in science, technology, and conveniences was a sped up. We had like a standstill at the moment. Then we gave other subsidiary pockets of that we quote unquote claim that's intelligence in that convenience area, and just created other things we're calling intelligence as science and technology as conveniences that ultimately is on the percentage scale of making us more retarded and dumb. I can't remember my grandmother number no more and stuff like that. I got a cell phone. But yeah, I love all y'all flight fuck me, you know, for sure. You know, listen to the bottom of the text move. Roy Archer, Uriel, the care God duties and responsibilities. Erect a small hill, hold that yellow hoop. Massasoit, Mama the toy. Woo! Masasaki.